how to give a talk on the principles. It strikes me straight out of the gate that there are uh, several different kinds of talk on the principles. Like if you get asked, "Oh, we'd like to give you a talk on, we'd like you to give a talk on the principles," there are three different types. One is, I've just made that up, by the way. There could be 17 different types, but I'm saying there's three. The first type is a talk about the principles. An introduction to the three principles, or the future of whatever it might be. So it's a talk specifically on the principles. The second type is a talk that's what we might call applications of the principles, like a new approach to parenting, or a principles approach to relationships, or the three principles in leadership, and that sort of thing. And then the third kind of talk is an incognito principles talk, where you're invited to give a talk on customer service, but you use your understanding of the principles to illuminate the topic without explicitly teaching the principles. But the fundamentals of how to give those different talks, whatever they might be, it's the same for all of them, which is, it seems to me the starting point is always, who's your audience, and what do you want to have happen for them as a result of coming to your talk? And what would you like them to take away with it? Like, so for instance, if I'm invited to do a talk, I was invited to do the closing talk at the Viva conference in Spain at the end of last year. And so I spoke to the organizers and I asked if I could wave a magic wand for everyone in attendance at the conference, what gift would you love them to get? And they thought about it and they said, well, one of the questions we get is, how do I hang on to the beautiful feeling when I leave the conference? So if you could give them any pointers on that, that would be great. So I was like, well, right away, I know that my objective for the talk is to have people get in touch with something that they're able to take away with them in terms of a deeper feeling and greater confidence, or about their ability to stay close to the principles and all of that. And then I start thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? And some of the answers to how am I going to do that, they're very straightforward. Like, I know that when you're working with a group, this is going to sound extreme the way I put it, but nothing you say is going to be the thing that has an impact for them. The thing that's going to have an impact for them is the realizations and insights that come from within them. So the question then becomes, okay, how can you make it easy for the people in your audience to have the insights and realizations that are going to make a difference to them? How can you make it easy for them to come on the journey with you? Well, that's a great thing to explore. And then you can think about, well, okay, if I want them to be having insights, then it'd probably help if I'm looking in the direction of insight myself, if I'm modeling insightfulness for them. And if I'm wanting them to have insights and realizations, might help if you take them into an insight-friendly space. So the question then becomes, okay, well, how can we get into that feeling of connection together? How can we get a connection? How can we all be on the same page? How can we all be looking towards the truth of our being together? And to me anyway, that looks kind of like a half art and half science. It's that's something to be explored and discovered insightfully for yourself. And like, while there are things you can learn that make it easier and more predictable and reliable and that sort of thing, the thing that's going to do most of the work for you is the fundamentals that you're seeing for yourself, that you're present to as a speaker, as a teacher, as a trainer. Your ability, for instance, to notice when you're getting off track and bring yourself back to that feeling. your ability to calibrate where the group is and where you're at and what's going on for everyone. Uh, your ability to recognize that you're being guided and to be available to that guidance, available to the nudges of your own intuition, your own wisdom, your own uh, inner guidance system. All of that is going to be to the good when it comes to leading a group into an insight-friendly space. And then once you find yourself in an insight-friendly space with a group, which is, insight-friendly space, just another way of saying in that feeling of connection, which, as I see it, is really the people in the group being present to the truth of who they really are, being the rule of thumb, the more present to the truth of who we are we get, the nicer it feels, which is another way of saying, the more in harmony with life we are, the better it feels. So your ability to, once you find your way there with the group, to just hang out there for a while, that seems to me to be, 90% of the game, is find your way into that insight friendly space, then hang out there long enough for some magic to happen. So if I was going to kind of put it in a nutshell, that would be my 7-minute guide to giving a talk on the principles. And I know anyone who's listening might be like, yeah, I could do with a little more meat on those bones, but I thought I'd start by sharing the fundamentals with you and then see where we go from there.
Thanks for your attention. I look forward to seeing you soon.